Hey, welcome to Manalizing. This is where men talk about the kind of stuff that men don't talk about. Put your hard hat on, get ready for a ride. Here we go. Welcome to Manalizing. I'm Garth Haslam. In this episode, I'm talking to Chris Rexwell. Now, Chris is former military. He's seen and done hard. He's been there. He's had the marriage. He's had the divorce. He's got the kids. And he's, like the rest of us, he's struggling his way through life. One of the differences is that he's willing to talk about it. And he's willing to address his demons by helping me and you and others address ours. That makes him open, it makes him vulnerable, and it makes him a respectable dude. Somebody who I would like to call a friend for the rest of my life. This is a good man who's just trying to find his way through all of the beatings that life is handing him. And he's rising above, and he talks about it. Here's the interview. Chris Adams. Here's what I know about you thus far. You're in a Facebook men's rights group, and you got a beard.
Right. Yes.
And that's about everything I know about you right now. Tell me a little bit about you. What's your favorite thing to do?
So I just had my son for the first time in 8 months last week. So that was the pinnacle of my year so far.
For the first time in 8 months. So you basically haven't had him at all this year.
Aside from two separate occasions that ended terribly.
Yeah. Well, let's go down that road. Let's talk about ended terribly.
So my ex and I had split in the tail end of January. And she had taken my son and refused to recognize equal custody. And wouldn't let me have my son at all.
Did the court give you equal custody?
They just did.
They just
2 weeks ago. Yeah.
Okay. Before then, it was kind of loosey-goosey. Nobody was dictating anything.
We had both actually filed on the same day against each other. And back in February, we didn't have a court hearing until May, and we didn't get our ruling until September 21st.
Dang, and all this time she kept the kid away from you. Does she live anywhere near you?
She lives across town. It's about a 20-minute drive.
Not too far. Not bad at all.
Yeah.
Where do you live, by the way? What state?
Up in Alaska.
Oh, my goodness. Like Anchorage, Juneau?
Yeah, Anchorage.
I've never been up there. I hear that mosquitoes are your state bird.
They are. This summer, they weren't too bad, but I mean, it's a beautiful, beautiful state to live in.
I bet, especially during the summer when you get just a little bit of sunshine.
Yeah, here in Anchorage, we typically get between 18 to 20 hours of sunlight in the summertime.
Yeah, and then during the winter, it's like 1 hour of sunshine, I guess.
Right, yeah.
Have you always lived in Alaska?
Yeah, born and raised. My whole life right here in Anchorage.
I watch those TV shows about fishing for crab or whatever, and I'm thinking, man.
Oh, I know. There's a dozen of them now.
Yeah, and I'm like, those freezing waves coming across. I don't care if I'm wearing a raincoat or not, man. That just doesn't sound pleasant.
Oh, definitely not. No.
So what do you do?
I work for a fire protection company. So I've kind of bounced around within that company. I started out doing dispatch and moved into the field doing inspections. And now I work in the purchasing department.
Well, that's a lot more cozy than being out on a boat in the middle of Arctic land.
Right. I mean, we definitely we travel all across the state. Winter, summer, rain, snow. So our technicians definitely see quite a bit.
You're in those bush plains in the middle of the -30 then, and you stay there because you said it's beautiful. I bet it is.
Yeah. I mean, I had my first child really early on, just out of high school, and kept me here. And after, a certain amount of time, you just kind of stay here.
Yeah,
I've been to other states, and just nothing compares to the beauty of Alaska.
I bet. Yeah, that's I have friends that go there on cruises and whatever, and beautiful is always the word they use when they describe it.
Yeah, yeah.
You said first kid. How many kids have you got?
Two. I've got a daughter. She's a teenager now, and then my son, who he's 3.
Different moms.
Yep, different moms.
So your daughter, the older one, the teenager, she's yours. You get to see her. Sounds like quite a bit more often. Does she stay with you?
Yeah, usually on weekends. I live about 50 miles away from her mother, so I usually, I'll get her on weekends and go out and have dinner with her and everything.
Uh-huh.
But we have a pretty good, co-parenting relationship now.
That's good. And doesn't sound like you have
Yeah.
nearly as good a co-parent relationship with number dose.
No, definitely not.
What are the failures? So there was a moment when I was about to do a divorce, and I went to the only place that I could think of. I wasn't going to talk to any friends of mine about it because I didn't know what they would think, and it was just too personal. So I went to the source of all knowledge. I played internet spades at the time, and I asked one of my internet spades friends about how to do a divorce. And she basically said, as long as you don't turn your kids into pawns, you'll be great. And I was like, oh, I'll be great. And then she turned the kids into pawns.
Oh, yeah.
But I'll ask you that same question. If your co-parenting relationship with wife number uno is good, and with number 2 is not, what's the difference? You and her.
We just have completely separate ideologies. I've always, before we even split up, the best interest of my son was always at heart. With her, she seems to use him, like you'd said, as a pawn,
right,
or an accessory,
uh-huh.
And
as a weapon,
right.
And how long has that been going on? Probably since the split.
Yep. We're going 9 months strong now. Very high conflict.
What do you think that's doing to the kid?
He's struggling. The first week I had him, he was having a hard time adjusting and getting used to my own routine compared to his mother's. And the very first night I had him, he was whispering to me, "Mommy doesn't like you."
That's helpful.
And right. And so I just sat him down and I said, that's okay, but I like your mom.
You said
I don't think he's.
I don't like your mom, or
he should be putting that. I do. I told him I do like your mom because I don't think he's not equipped to handle that type of tumultuous
right
relationship.
Well, and what I was told by my lawyer is if if one parent tells or indicates in any way that the other parent is bad, then the kid is going to go, well, that means I'm half bad. Mm-hmm. And if they're both screaming at each other, telling each other that they're both broken, then the kid goes, well, I'm 100% bad.
Right.
And that's not a good place to put a kid in. So you, at some point, you got 50% custody in court. And did she follow the rules at that point?
To a degree. She had insisted on multiple calls per day when he was in my care. And when I refused, I told her maybe once at night while he gets adjusted to this new schedule. She said, if you don't agree to this, you're not going to have him.
Yeah, there's the weaponizing again.
Yeah.
So that sounds to me like something that a person ought to work out, with lawyers or a mediator present, is how many phone calls per day are there going to be?
Right.
I know that my ex weaponized my kids. The first thing they would do is they'd come over. And for me, my liability to my ex-wife for a number of months was greater than my total income. And so I was living on credit cards. And so if I bought at the time a digital camera, which at that time was a big deal, it was not 3 minutes later that she was on the computer telling my ex-wife, Dad bought this. Another way of weaponizing the children.
Right.
Yeah, that sounds to me like, for the 10,000 or two dads that are listening to us, that's an item to talk about with the baby mama, ex-spouse, whatever.
Oh yeah.
And it's kind of difficult for the dude. We're not programmed to talk. And for me, calling up my daughters and talking about randomness wasn't going to happen. Because that's not how us dudes operate. We don't just call somebody up to talk about, how's your day? At least I'm
Right.
not. We're going to call up because we got a reason to talk. We say that thing and then we hang up.
Yep, definitely.
Whereas a woman is going to call the child and say, how's your day? Did you pick your nose today? Whatever it is.
Mm.
Um, but then, yeah, if she's calling multiple times per day, you can't do anything. So,
Right.
yeah, what did that do to you when she's playing that game?
I've really adapted to it at this point. And
Uh-huh.
now that I've got the court order to back me, I've actually got some teeth to tell her, no, that's not going to happen. Before we had this court order, she would tell me, if you don't do this or that, or, if I don't like this, you're not going to see your son, or, you're not going to be able to spend time with him. So now that we have this court order, it's given me a chance to, kind of push back on that.
Right. What was a difficult moment during either of the two divorces? And most importantly, what did it do to your guts? What was your emotional response to it?
With my most recent ex, it was just a difficult thing was, you know, being alone, coming home to an empty house. I'd spent, the better part of a decade
Uh-huh.
committed to my family. So, friends have grown up, they got their own families. And so, just kind of ended up being stuck at home with nothing to do, alone to my thoughts. And
Yeah.
so that was the
And
difficult part. But
so, yeah, I'm going to paint the picture as I'm seeing it now because I've been there. I went from being in a house with three noisy kids and noise going everywhere and TVs and Xboxes and bouncing and chattering to a basement apartment and no noise. And I'd turn the TV or the radio on and it just didn't make up for the fact that there was nobody there but me. That silence was
right.
torture. I would have just assumed been waterboarded. Is that
Oh,
what it
yeah.
felt like
Yeah.
for you?
For quite a while, that's how it felt, and but throughout all this, I've really reconnected with a lot of my extended family, and they've been supporting me. So I've had that, as an outlet, which has been nice.
You mentioned that your friends have a life now; they've got their own families, and what I heard you say is I couldn't go to them because they've got their own lives going. So, did you at that time have somebody to go to break the silence?
Not really. I have a couple friends that I can talk to about certain things, but you know, really, just kind of keep to myself with a lot of the nitty gritty details. And,
Yeah.
give like status updates, but I won't really divulge a lot of information.
Yeah, that's because we're programmed to do exactly that, and it's hard on you.
No.
I was actually warned by somebody, my brother-in-law, who had previously been through a divorce. He says, "You better remember what it was like because the living alone is going to be so bad that just that alone is going to motivate you to want to go back." What did that do to your head? What were the things your demons were telling you while you were sitting there alone in your apartment?
There was definitely quite a few times where, I think, maybe I should reach out and maybe we can try to work this out and, go back to the way things were because, it was comfortable. The entire relationship was just toxic,
Uh-huh.
you know. But again, it was, at that time, it still seemed like it would be better than being home by myself,
Yeah, you kind of have to choose between a toxic relationship where you're living in the same house versus a toxic relationship where you're not. Um,
Right.
Why did you choose what you chose? What was the difference between the toxicness?
It was just the overwhelming sense of freedom. You
Uh-huh.
know, uh, I distinctly remember it was about a week after we separated. I had gotten off work. It was a tough day at work, and I decided, I'm going to stop in by the bar on the way home and just grab a drink. You know, and had I done that when we were together, I wouldn't hear the end of it. But I enjoyed my beer, and went home, and just felt great to be able to make those choices and not have to have any repercussions from them.
Let's say that I'm going to hand you Robin Williams, and he's a genie, and he's going to give you one wish, and it has to be about the ex-wife. What are you going to wish for her?
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. Um, Really, it would just be to be more understanding and communicative. It was very much so like her way or the highway.
Uh-huh.
Um, Everything that I'd done, it had to be for her. It would have been nice, to have equal give and take.
What do you think was going on in her head? Why did she need so desperately to control you? What was in it for her?
I could speculate that to the day I die, but really, I honestly think it's rooted in her family. Her mother is very much the same way, and so are her sisters, and they seem to seek out men that will do whatever they want.
And that is why you felt freedom, is because now there's nobody
Mm-hmm.
giving you grief for being 5 minutes longer than your usual commute. Yeah.
Right, right.
My wife, my present wife, told me that when she unloaded her ex and he was walking away, she just felt relief, like a burden was being taken off her shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
And again, in her case, that was a control thing that she was getting out from under. What are you looking for? What, based on your experience, what are you looking for?
I would probably go for somebody that's independent, self-sufficient, knows what they want, and respects boundaries.
What kind of boundaries?
Boundaries of privacy and personal freedoms.
So basically, if
Uh,
you want to stop at the bar and get a drink, she's going to respect that you're an adult and you can choose to do that and stay there for a half
right,
hour
right.
if you want to. Is that something that you learned about what you need based on the fact that the previous wives didn't do that? I guess you said a self-contained woman, somebody who knows who she is and is independent. Were
Mm-hmm.
either of your previous wives not independent? Is that why that's important to you?
Yeah, so my other baby mother, we were together in high school, so we never really had a chance to have a meaningful relationship. But with my current ex, it was just kind of something that I didn't realize how bad it was until I was out of it.
Yeah, maybe the ex was insecure, so because of that, she needed you around all the time. That maybe
Hmm.
that's I'm guessing that's why you mentioned that you needed somebody who is secure um, in
Right.
herself. Is that a fair statement? Did I get that one wrong?
No, no, I think you hit it right on the base. The past 5 years, been working every day, been the sole provider for the last 3 years, and really takes a toll out, after a while.
What what's your lowest moment in the last decade?
Lowest moment was probably this, custody fight and having my son taken away and not being able to have that relationship that I'd had, the past 3 years of his life.
And then that lowest moment continued for 8 months. Is that right?
Right. Yep.
That's a lot of low moments. You go from being a dad, somebody you love, you have a meaning and a purpose, and then you just got dead air. What did that feel like?
Just awful. You don't know what to do with yourself. It's easy, to say, oh, go out and meet people, go do this. But oftentimes I found I had no motivation to do anything.
Couldn't stand being with yourself and couldn't stand going out and meeting anybody.
Right.
I get that. I found that I couldn't really turn to the friends that I'd had because they were couple friends and they were friends of
Mm-hmm.
both of us. and I didn't know whose side they would take. So all of my friends were off limits. They were past tense friends. Even a guy that had been my friend since second grade, I didn't even know if I could rely on them to give me any backup. I knew my buddy would if he was alone, but he salutes her. So I had nobody. And, you go from the couples world to a singles world where you just don't have friends. And even if you did, who wants to cry on one of your friend's shoulder? That's not what we do.
Right.
So how'd you handle it?
I just tried to focus on myself for most of the time. I started eating healthier, taking my dog out and whatnot, and trying to keep myself busy. But even then, it's trying to get that motivation to do so. For the longest time, it just wasn't there.
Yeah, I would imagine. So what'd you do? Did you just cocoon in the apartment for days on end?
Yeah, months. I'd go to work, come home, have a couple drinks, go to bed, rinse and repeat.
Rinse and repeat. So what got you out of it?
Focusing on myself, trying to find things to keep myself occupied, finding hobbies and getting out and doing things.
What kind of hobbies did you do?
Right now, I've been kind of doing a lot of housework and started to take care of my grandparents' lawn because, they're getting older. And my grandfather in particular, used to take a lot of pride in his way his house looked. So most of the summer, I was over there mowing every weekend, edging the lawn, painting the trim.
I got you out.
Yeah.
I'm thinking it was probably a blessing to you that he was there and he was close and he had a lawn that you needed to do maintenance on.
Right. Yeah. It gave me something to take pride in.
Yeah. Something to make you proud of and service. I think you actually hit on something there. You were a zombie for 8 months and you got out. I'm going to say at least partly because you found somebody to do good things for.
Right. Yeah.
So during that lowest moment, you said that lowest moment lasted for months because you were just alone. And you are only weeks out of that lowest moment because only 2 weeks ago you got 50% custody of your child, right?
Right.
You were a zombie just a few days ago still.
Yeah. And even still, after the handoff last Sunday, I found myself come back, starting to fall into that same routine. It's like, what am I going to do now?
How does that feel? Is that a lonely feeling? Is it a depressed feeling? Is it an empty island sort of a feeling? What does that feel like?
Yeah, I'd say it's more of like a depressed feeling. I'd just sat down and looked at all the toys and everything that were strewn about. And 10 minutes after dropping my son off, I was already missing him.
Oh yeah, you got those toys. Did you? What did you do? Did you leave him there just to prove that he was there for a minute, or did you clean him up?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It took me about 3 days to really get everything cleaned up. And you hit on it right there.
Yeah. If you can't have your son, at least you can have the echoes. In a weird way, it's kind of like having a son die, and then the parents never change the room for the next 100 years.
Right. Yeah.
You want to retain what you can. And so you get them back next week?
Yep. We, our handoffs are in the evenings every Sunday.
Every Sunday. Okay. So you are just barely out of your lowest moment. And then you're kind of sort of back into it for this week. So this is going to be an interesting question because you're kind of still in your lowest moment. But if your lowest moment was your son being gone, how was that a benefit and a blessing for you?
It really gave me a chance to find myself again, start thinking for myself and, doing things that I want.
What's the difference between the Chris? I'm going to divide your life into 3 segments. The one where you were married to the ex and you were saluting her and being controlled by. The next one for the 8-month period where you were living all alone in an empty, isolated cave of darkness. And the third phase of your life, which was last week. Not a very long phase of your life at this point.
Right.
Let's talk about the difference between phase 1 Chris and phase 2 Chris. What's the difference between those two dudes?
Phase 1, it was, I didn't really get a chance to, think for myself. Everything I was doing was for my ex, and maintaining a home and family, and just working day in day out. Not really having a chance to connect with friends or do things that I like. And,
that is its own form of zombie mode, isn't it?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And then phase two, it was kind of like a punch to the gut, having, the family that I'd been trying to build up, ripped away and being alone. But, it also gave me a chance to really focus on myself for the first time.
Yeah. And now phase three mode. Who is this Chris that is different than phase one and two?
I'm really more myself now than I have been in the last decade. I'm really enjoying things that I hadn't enjoyed in years, and doing things, that make me happy.
Do you now do them with your son?
Oh yeah, yeah, we had a lot of fun.
And what are those things?
I we went to the park, we went to arcades, and just got out and enjoyed, the beauty of Alaska.
Uh-huh. I went to Costa Rica once, and I'm from Utah, and we decided that we were going to do horses.
Mm.
So we ordered the horses and showed up, and they we showed up in beach gear, shorts, sandals, and a t-shirt. And
Oh
we
yeah.
didn't know that you can't do that on horses. They
Mm-hmm.
said a couple of times, they said, well, we thought that because you were from Utah that you ride horses every day. And one of us had spent some time on horses. The rest of us
Mm-hmm.
knew what a horse was, and that was about the extent of it.
Oh yeah.
You and now I don't even remember where I was going to go with that, but oh yeah, I do. You live in Alaska. I am going to
Mm-hmm.
assume that you're an outdoors type of person. Is that true?
No, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. So you take him outdoors,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's what you enjoy, and I'm gonna guess that he enjoys it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's like pulling teeth to get back inside at the end of the day.
That's awesome. It has to be rewarding to know that the things that you enjoy, he enjoys, and you can bond that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. Does the ex-wife do the same? Does she take him out, or is that not a thing?
I'm not too sure. She's
Did she?
been very, yeah, secretive. You know,
Uh huh.
uh, he mentions going to the parks, from time to time, but she's really, when we were together, she was very much so like a homebody. She would, just like to be at home. So I assume, it's probably the same type of
It's
atmosphere he's in.
not going to be different. Yeah, I think of Alaska and I think of moose walking down the street.
Oh yeah.
That or you said you're in Anchorage, right?
Mm.
Yeah. You ever get that sort of thing happen?
Yeah, yeah. The moose, uh, they aren't in the city too often, not as much in the summertime as they are in the winter. But the area that I live in, we get quite a bit of black bears that run through the neighborhoods.
And do you duck and run for cover or just wave at the bear as you're walking past?
Usually just, kind of wave at the bear, yell. They're fairly smaller compared to, like brown bears. So they're just kind of more like, rabid dogs.
So there's black bear, brown bear, and grizzly bear, and the grizzlies you don't
Mm.
mess with. But the
Yeah, yeah.
black bear are just smaller, and so you just kind of act aggressive with them. Um,
Yeah, yeah. They're more often to run away from you, than, face you and fight you.
where the brown bear, you got to respect them a little more.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm going to go back to that dark moment. I want to hit that question again. How has that taught you to be a better dad and a happier person?
It forced me to really analyze my life, and what was important to me, and make me look at what I want moving forward. I could either choose to, get sucked into that feeling and not get out of it, or use that opportunity to look inside myself and see what I want, rise out of it.
So let's do a time machine. You get a DeLorean. This is a Back to the Future reference, by the way.
Yes.
And you get to set that thing to go back to any time you want, where you can go back to visit you and give you advice. What date and time are you going to go to, and what advice are you going to give?
That's a good one. Plenty of times I could go back and give myself. I'd probably go, to my early 20s and, tell myself, use this time to expand your horizons. Don't party so much. Don't, waste your life away. Get a degree in something, or, find something that you can excel in. Most of my early 20s, I like to call them my roaring 20s, because I did, lots of partying back then. And didn't really use that time as effective as I could have, which sent me back a few years.
Right. So what other time are you going to stop at with the DeLorean?
Probably at the beginning of my last relationship. Tell myself, follow your heart. Do what you think is best.
In my case, I realized that things were not to my liking when I ended my first marriage. For all the stuff that was going on, I realized that there was never a single moment when I never said, look, X, Y, and Z is happening and I don't like it. And we've got some choices. Either you can put an end to that, or I've got a choice to make. I never gave her that option.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever have that moment with your ex?
Yeah, I would say so. Probably not when we were together.
Mm-hmm.
But once I was on my own, I had that freedom again to stand up for myself, tell her it's not going to be this way.
Yeah, I can identify with that because I similarly lacked the spine, the freedom to say, look, this is what I need it to be. I just left because I was spineless. And so, yeah, you get away from her and your spine suddenly grows. And then you can have that conversation. At that point, it's less effective, but at least you had it. I never did. What am I missing? That you mentioned, we've already been down the road of the hardest point in your life. What am I not dragging out of you as we talk? What else? What was your motivations for coming onto this podcast?
When I was in that lowest part of my life, nobody turned to, nobody talked to. I just happened to, search, different, fathers groups and, just looking for advice. And here this whole time I'm thinking that, this is a unique thing that I'm experiencing. And it wasn't until I joined these groups that I realized, this is very common. The way you feel, the way your ex treats you, the hardships that you're enduring.
Yeah. Yeah. We all think that our condition is unique. And it sounds like your and my condition were very similar. And I'm sure we're not the only two. There's not that many different ways for a spouse of either a male or a female variety to turn into Satan, but being controlling is certainly on the short list.
Definitely. I mean, even still, she's trying to maintain that control. We're 2 weeks into this court order, and she's already had her attorney put in a motion for reconsideration, trying to strip me from the equal custody I have.
I'm going to say that's pretty awesome that you got equal custody in Utah. Yeah. I was told that even though courts are theoretically neutral, the woman always gets the 80%, and the man is stripped down to once a week at night and every other weekend.
Right.
I'm glad for you that you got 50% custody.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's awesome. It turned out badly for the ex-wife because, once the kids turned 18, they were no longer my financial responsibility. She had set that up and I held her to it. And where if she had gone, for example, 50-50, it wouldn't have mattered to me whether they were 18 or not. I would have provided half of their support.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But she fought hard for keeping my minutes to a minimum. So it's like, okay, if that's the game we're playing, then that's the game we're playing. You'll get what you get and I'll get what I get, and my liabilities will be exactly what the law says they are.
Right. Yeah.
I'm unpleasant that way.
Yeah. Yeah. It's about how I am with her now.
Yeah. Do you have a business you want to plug, or any last words you'd like to throw in there? What's eating at you that you'd like to tell the 10 million people that are watching you right now?
Really, I would like to say, if you're going through a similar battle or any type of battle, for your children, just don't give up. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. It might be hard to see at the moment, but you keep at it, you'll get there.
That's good advice. Thanks, Chris.